What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitching Ninja's Filthiest Pitches of the Day. Remember, before we get to those pitches, hit that subscribe button. Be a part of the biggest and best daily baseball show on YouTube. So hit subscribe now, and without further ado, here are my Filthiest Pitches of the Day. I'm going to start with Merrill Kelly, who had 7 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 3 runs. He relied on these fastballs as well as these nasty changeups. He battled Ranger Suarez, who had 7 Ks in 7 scoreless innings, giving up only 4 hits. Had this cutter and curveball, as well as these 2-seamers, one of them getting this jump back. I love it. Osvaldo Bido had 6 Ks in 4 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had these fastballs, sliders, and cutters, as well as this changeup, and he looked really good. He faced Drew Smyly, who had 4 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 5 runs, and had this curveball and elevated fastball. Aaron Savali had 7 Ks in 3 2/3 innings, giving up 2 runs, thanks to his curveballs, cutters, and splitters. He faced Michael Wacha, who had 5 Ks in 6 2/3 scoreless innings, lowering his ERA to 2.89 this year. He had his low 90s fastball working, but his best pitch, of course, was his changeup. And as I've said before, Wacha has one of the best changeups among starting pitchers. Opponents are only hitting 186 against his changeup with a 36% whiff rate. Garrett Whitlock had 7 Ks in 7 innings, giving up 2 runs, and relied on his fastballs, sliders, and of course his nasty changeups. And Whitlock got a little brain lock on this change, getting the freeze because the hitter's expecting the fastball and gets the changeup. He faced Austin Gomber, who had 5 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 3 runs, and had these dirty sliders. Reed Detmers was really good yesterday, with 8 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 1 run, thanks to his mix of fastballs, sliders, and these beautiful curveballs. He faced Andrew Heaney, who had 5 Ks in 3 2/3 innings, giving up only 1 run. He had these sliders, including this backdoor slider, as well as this painted fastball. Anthony DeSclafani had 7 Ks in 3 innings, giving up 5 runs, and had this 2-seamer, curveball, and slider. He battled Jordan Montgomery, who had 7 Ks in 6 1/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, and had these fastballs, including this one for a sword, as well as this curveball getting a sword. Bailey Ober had 7 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 2 runs, thanks to his fastballs and curveballs, but the real pitch he dominated with were these changeups. These things were filthy. He battled Colin Ray, who had 4 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 3 runs, and had this fastball and curveball. Spencer Strider had another uncharacteristic outing with 6 Ks in 5 innings, but gave up 7 hits and 5 runs. His fastball velo was down a small tick, but did have these overpowering fastballs, as well as these sliders. And here's an overlay of his fastball and slider that you can see when they're working well together, gives hitters fits. But he gave up 3 home runs, and most of them were on middle fastballs. Usually his fastball works a little better when it's elevated, or occasionally when it's right at the knees and a hitter expects it to drop out of the zone. I love this. In Miggy's first at bat, he nods his head at Strider out of respect, and Strider gives him a little hat tip. Quadzilla, don't fall for this good guy act. It's a trap. Because 2 seconds later, on the very next pitch, Cabrera hits a bomb, and then gets to do his hockey celebration and this Vince McMahon, Conor McGregor strut in the dugout. Elite mental warfare by Miggy. I appreciated this moment where Snitker went over to talk to Strider after Strider was struggling in this game. I'm pretty sure he was showing him respect for toughing it out and still eating up 5 innings, giving the team a chance to win despite not having his best stuff. It's great managing. Strider faced Reese Olson, who had 2 Ks in 3 1/3 innings, but gave up 6 earned runs. Olson did have this 2-seamer and painted changeup, though. Ben Lively had 4 Ks in 5 2/3 innings, giving up 2 runs, and had this slider and fastball. He outdueled Daniel Lynch, who had 3 Ks in 7 innings, giving up 7 runs, and had this changeup for a sword. Luis Medina had 5 Ks in 4 2/3 innings, giving up 4 runs, and had this fastball and curveball. He faced Tyler Glasnow, who had 6 Ks in 5 1/3 innings, giving up 3 earned runs, and got most of his Ks on these hammer curveballs. I freaking love Glasnow's curveballs. Jose Berrios was outstanding with 5 Ks and 7 2/3 scoreless innings thanks to his fastballs and breaking balls. He took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, and this outing lowered his ERA to 3.28. He faced Kyle Bradish, who was also very solid, going 7 innings, giving up only 1 run. He only had 1 K, and that was on this fastball. Framber Valdez had 6 Ks in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run, thanks to his breaking balls and changeup. Valdez's ERA this year is now 2.27. He outdueled Josiah Gray, who had 5 Ks in 7 innings, giving up 4 runs, and had this sweeper and fastball. Clayton Kershaw had 5 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 2 runs, and had these sliders as well as these Cooperstown curveballs. He battled Mike Clevenger, who had 5 Ks in 4 2/3 scoreless innings, thanks to these fastballs and breaking balls. In an elite pitching matchup, Gerrit Cole had 8 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had no walks. He had these upper 90s fastballs, his wicked sliders, including this front hip slider that you can see from a home plate view. You can see why you might buckle on that too, as well as this knuckle curve from a home plate view. And here's an overlay of his fastball and slider, and you can see why he gets so many Ks on that combination. Those pitches tunnel well, that fastball really keeps its plane, and that slider dives to the dirt. He battled Justin Verlander, who had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had this fastball and this slider and this curveball from a home plate view. Luis Castillo had 6 Ks in 5 2/3 innings, giving up 2 runs and 2 hits, but his command wasn't great. He gave up 6 walks. He relied on his fastballs and got a fist pump K strut here, one of my favorite K struts, as well as these changeups. But he was outdueled by yesterday's filthiest starting pitcher, Eury Perez. He is only 20 years old, he's 6'8", probably still growing, and his stuff is absolutely disgusting. He had these fastballs, including this 99-mile-an-hour heater, with the gun check. You can see him turn back to the board to see how fast it was. He also had these sick changeups and sliders. And here's an overlay of his fastball and slider. And you can see why that combination is so filthy. You can also see why he's the #1 rated pitching prospect in baseball. Incredible stuff. I also love the fact that Sandy Alcantara was acting as Perez's interpreter before the game and wearing a Pitching Ninja shirt. The thing that really jumped out at me is how tall he is. We know Sandy is a big dude. He's 6'5". So that gives you a good idea of how tall Eury is, and why Sandy gave him the nickname the Baby Giraffe. Now on to my filthiest relievers. Mark Leiter Jr. had this splitter. Colin McHugh had these wicked sweepers. Josh Sborz had these breaking balls. Andres Munoz had this White Castle special. Hector Neris had this splitter. Albert Abreu had this overpowering 99-mile-an-hour heat. Griffin Jax had this 98-mile-an-hour gas. Joe Jimenez had this slider for a sword. Brock Stewart had this filthy combination of fastballs and sweepers. Taylor Rogers had these wicked sweepers. Tyler Rogers, his brother, had this rising slider. This pitch still boggles my mind. Slider shouldn't rise. A total UFO. Tommy Kahnle had these changeups, including this Expelliarmus changeup.
Expelliarmus!
Camilo Doval had this slider and overpowering heat. Craig Kimbrell had this fastball and knuckle curve. Jordan Hicks had this absolutely dotted 101-mile-an-hour fastball. Jose Alvarado had these 100-mile-an-hour to 102-mile-an-hour two-seamers. El Diablo with some devilish heat. Speaking of heat, Matt Brash had this 100-mile-an-hour paint and other 100-mile-an-hour fastball. But you can't talk about heat without yesterday's filthiest reliever, Jhoan Duran, who had this 103, 104, and 103-mile-an-hour fastballs. Incredibly, he threw the 8 fastest pitches of this game, and only 5 of them were his fastballs. Yep, 3 of them were splitters, and they were also among the fastest pitches in the game. Ridiculous stuff from Duran. And now, my pitching ninja moment of zen. What an amazing fake out here by Fernando Tatis. He aims his body like he's trying to cut down Rosario at second base, but instead totally dekes him and throws the ball to first base. I am not sure I've ever seen this before. Absolutely brilliant. What is up, everybody? My picks of the day today are a 3-leg parlay. I'm going to start out with Taj Bradley for 6 Ks or more, then take Dylan Cease for 6 Ks or more, and top it off with Shohei Ohtani for 7 Ks or more. What would your picks of the day be?